I'm divorcing you because my mistress is pregnant with a son. You're a defective product for not bearing a son. So get out. Mistress? You can't mean that woman. Pointing at the woman next to her husband, Brian, the woman retorted with displeasure. Don't point at me. I'm Aurora. How rudely middle-aged of you. That's right. That's why I'm dumping you. Brian and Aurora sneered. I was dumbfounded. How can she openly admit to being a mistress? Normally, you'd hide such a thing. And to divorce because his mistress is pregnant? There's a limit to making selfish claims. Does he have any idea how much I've put up with? Well, divorce suits me fine. I have plenty of evidence, and he's admitted to the affair. I'll discard this husband for compensation. I'm going to bring him to the lowest of lows. Prepare yourself. I clenched my back teeth and headed to my room. My name is Serenity. I'm a 43-year-old housewife raising 4 daughters. My eldest, Luna, is 11 and in middle school. Stella, 9, is in elementary school and mostly takes care of herself. But the younger 2, 5-year-old twins, Mary and Lily, still need a lot of support. Still, I cherish being able to care for them now. It makes these precious days all the more enjoyable. You might think we have a happy family, but in reality, we don't. The in-laws I live with, Dominic and Hazel, are always complaining about me, and Brian is hardly ever home. Our marital and family relationships are as bad as they can get. Brian must be cheating with someone somewhere. Of course, I've hired someone to investigate Brian's conduct, but the girls need their father. With that in mind, divorce doesn't seem so simple. My resentment only grows. If it weren't for living with Dominic and Hazel, it might not have come to this. It's regrettable, but there was nothing to be done at the time. Brian and I met through a mutual acquaintance. Back then, I was working as a hairstylist at my mom Grace's salon and was close to a woman in the neighborhood named Natalie. I know a man about your age who frequents my favorite jewelry shop. Natalie started talking about this man. His name was Brian. He appeared to be the heir to a jewelry sales company, an elite graduate who was too busy with work to meet women. Why don't you meet him? I'm not in the same league as an elite. It's just a meeting. Eventually, I couldn't refuse and agreed to meet Brian. But when we actually met, we hit it off surprisingly well. I was impressed by his fondness for children, and his elite status made him quite smooth in handling things. That's how we started dating with marriage in mind. After Brian proposed to me, I accepted the marriage. However, when we went to a family meeting at the in-laws' house, Dominic said to me, "Our family runs a business. Both my wife and I are busy, so we prefer a daughter-in-law who can manage household chores." "I live with my mom, and I take care of the household chores," I replied. Hazel's attitude changed upon hearing this. "Oh? If you're good at housework, let's live together. It'll be more convenient for both of us, right?" I was surprised. I couldn't see how it was convenient for both of us. But, without a chance to express my opinion, the decision was made to live together. I thought it was a mistake, but it was too late for regrets. Brian seemed to agree with the living arrangement. "Well, we can discuss living separately once we settle down. Brian will be on my side, so it should be fine." I compromised. This was a big mistake. As soon as we got married, Hazel dumped all the household chores on me. "Serenity, I'm off to work, so please take care of the cleaning and laundry," she said. "Yes," I replied. Hazel became an employee at Dominic's company, but it was only on paper. Essentially, she pushed the chores onto me and went out to enjoy herself. The atmosphere wasn't right to bring up living separately. I sighed in resignation. Still, I could endure being burdened with housework since Brian's income was good and I had become a housewife after marriage. Despite my complaints, I earnestly tackled the chores. However, one day, Dominic asked for a favor. "We're in a bind because a part-time employee took off. Could you help out at the store?" His company was a jewelry sales business involved in wholesale and also owning retail stores. He was essentially asking me to work as a salesperson. Though I had my grievances, I was living with Dominic. If I were to refuse, it would sour the atmosphere at home. Reluctantly, I accepted the job. That was my second big mistake. Dominic, encouraged by this success, frequently asked for my help at the company. I missed the chance to refuse and ended up doing whatever Dominic asked. Honestly, I was even considering divorce. Then, I discovered I was pregnant. When I shared this with Dominic and Hazel, they were overjoyed. "Wonderful, Serenity! You must prioritize your health now. No need for household or work chores." Yes, right. I must inform the relatives. Dominic began contacting relatives in a flurry. Watching him, Brian spoke to me. "Sorry, Dad and Mom are just excited." "No, it's okay. I'm happy they're happy." "That's good. Make sure to have a healthy baby." Brian's words were the most encouraging. From that day, my life changed drastically. Hazel took over the household chores. She had pushed on to me. Meanwhile, I was able to relax and rest. Dominic no longer asked me to help with work. This way, I can look forward to a calm delivery. Several months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl without any complications. However, when Dominic and Hazel came to see the baby, their faces fell with disappointment. Despite feeling anxious, I showed them my daughter. "Look, a healthy girl. We named her Luna." "Oh, that's a nice name," Hazel said, clearly disappointed. Dominic felt the same. "Well, having a sister will make a boy grow up strong. Make sure the next one is a boy," he said. "Yes," I replied, confused. After Dominic and Hazel left, I asked Brian about their strange behavior. Was something wrong with Dominic and them? "Probably because it's a girl," he guessed. "What do you mean?" As I pressed, Brian began to explain with a dejected look. His family had been running a company since his grandfather's time, and as it was a family business, there was a need for a male heir. Dominic and Hazel had been hoping for a boy, so my giving birth to a girl was a disappointment to them. "Well, make sure the next one is a boy," Brian said, looking dissatisfied. I was furious. Was he suggesting that a girl couldn't be a successor? That's not true. Girls can work too. In fact, for jewelry sales, a girl might even have an advantage. What's wrong with these people? I found myself wanting a divorce right away. But with Luna here, that wasn't an option. I'll endure at least until Luna is grown. After being discharged from the hospital, my life reverted to how it was before pregnancy. Every day, I was burdened with household and work duties, on top of taking care of Luna. Enduring the pain, I carried on with my life. Eventually, I became pregnant again, but once more, it was a girl. We named her Stella, but Dominic, Hazel, and even Brian showed little interest. Years passed, and I experienced my third pregnancy, which turned out to be twin girls. Predictably, Dominic, Hazel, and Brian showed no interest, even going as far to dump more household chores on me. Even after giving birth to the twins, Mary and Lily, the situation didn't change. I started seriously considering divorce. Then, Brian and I had a heated argument over educational policies. "She's just a girl, she'll be fine on her own." "Nowadays, girls also need to study with college in mind." "Huh? As long as a woman looks good, she can get married. She doesn't need to study." Brian and I argued like this every day. Naturally, our relationship progressively worsened. Eventually, Brian began to spend nights away from home. He must be having an affair, I thought, growing angry. Enduring this isn't good for my health. I visited a detective agency nearby and requested an investigation into Brian's behavior. It'll take a few weeks for the results. I better prepare for everything. I made up my mind. First, I would explain the situation to my daughters. Dad and Mom might not be able to get along anymore. Mary and Lily looked confused, but Luna and Stella seemed to understand. "I'm fine. I hate Dad anyway." "Yeah, Dad is always angry, so I don't like him either. It seems my daughters take after me. With this, I can find the right time to bring up divorce. I felt relieved. Then, one Sunday morning, someone visited early. Who could it be? As I wondered, Brian came in with a guest. Serenity, we need to talk. Brian had brought a young woman with him, who was smiling oddly, pleased with herself, and wore flashy makeup. Since you couldn't give me an heir, I found a woman who can. What? A woman who can produce an heir? Isn't that cheating? Confused, Brian continued, stroking the woman's belly. Well, that's the situation. At that moment, I understood everything. Brian continued with a nasty grin. I'm divorcing you because my mistress is pregnant with a son. You're a defective product for not bearing a son. So get out. Mistress? You can't mean that woman. Pointing at the woman next to Brian. Then the woman retorted, displeased. Don't point at me. I'm Aurora. How rude of a middle-aged woman. Exactly. That's why I'm dumping you. Brian and Aurora sneered together. I was dumbfounded. How can she openly admit to being a mistress? Normally, you'd hide such a thing. And to divorce because his mistress is pregnant? He should limit his selfishness. Does he have any idea how much I've tolerated? Well, divorce suits me fine. I have plenty of evidence, and he's admitted to the affair. I'll discard this husband for compensation. I'll make sure he hits rock bottom. Be prepared. I clenched my back teeth and headed to my room. There, I noticed my 4 daughters outside the room. Holding them close, I whispered. I couldn't make up with Dad. Don't cry, Mom. We're here for you. Luna comforted me. I hugged my 4 daughters tightly. Then we began preparing to move. I contacted a moving company and also called my mom, Grace. Mom? About what happened recently. It didn't work out, did it? Mom gently asked. I had informed her when I requested the investigation. It seems Brian is cheating, so I might get a divorce. Yeah, that's right. Then you've got a tough road ahead. Come back home immediately. I'm preparing everything. Thank you, Mom. Later, I moved back to my parents' house with my 4 daughters. Although I had been worried, my daughters didn't seem down. In fact, they were happy to go to their grandma's house. But that doesn't resolve everything. The discussions about child support and compensation weren't finished yet. Moving back, I could resume working as a hairstylist like before. But it would be tough without child support. I hope we can have a reasonable discussion. That was my only concern. After moving, I started discussions with Brian about compensation in the divorce proceedings. But, as expected, we were at an impasse. You're divorcing me because you cheated. It's because you couldn't bear a son. I haven't done anything wrong, Brian boldly claimed. Does he not think cheating is wrong? I was appalled by his childish attitude. Eventually, months passed without any resolution. By then, Brian had stopped answering my calls. I guess I have no choice but to go to his office. I was contemplating this when suddenly my mobile phone rang. It was Brian on the other end. Serenity, can you talk right now? After all this time avoiding me, now you want to talk? How self-centered. I retorted with displeasure. Brian went silent, so I hurried to continue before he could hang up. So, what do you want to talk about? I was wondering, would you consider remarrying me? I thought I had misheard. So I asked Brian to clarify. Did you just say remarry? You're joking, right? I'm not joking. Things are just the worst right now. Brian sounded quite down. Despite the hassle, I asked why. Brian then shared his story. A few days before the call, he received a message at work from his parents that Aurora was about to give birth. Thinking the long-awaited son was arriving, Brian rushed to the hospital. By the time he arrived, Aurora had already given birth, but Brian found his parents standing dumbfounded outside the delivery room. Did something happen to Aurora? Brian asked the doctor. The doctor said the birth was successful. Curious, Brian went to see the baby. At the newborn room, a nurse pointed out Brian's child, but the moment he saw the baby, Brian turned pale. The baby clearly wasn't mine. But if it was just born, I began suggesting perhaps it was too soon to tell, but Brian interrupted loudly. The baby's skin was dark, but Aurora and I are both white. It was evidently not his child. I figured as much. I found myself responding. Brian retorted with displeasure. What do you mean by figured? Before you decided to divorce me, I had an investigation done on you, I explained. An investigation? Brian was shocked. I continued nonchalantly. I had your affair partner, Aurora. Was that her name? I had her investigated too. And? She had other men she was close to, including a black man. Maybe he's the real father, I teased. But I thought, you really believe that? It's laughable. Like a young woman would be satisfied with a middle-aged man. I laughed loudly at him. Brian's anger exploded, raising his voice. Shut up! Don't laugh! Ignoring Brian's words, I laughed heartily before bringing up the subject of child support and compensation. About the child support and compensation. Shut up! I said we should remarry. And I said no, I yelled back, and Brian shouted even louder. If you don't want to remarry, then you raise the kids. That's the condition for paying compensation and child support. What an outrageous thing to say. I was so appalled I was left speechless, and he hung up on me. After that, the phone went unanswered. If he won't take my calls, we can't talk. I don't want to see him, but I guess I have to go to his company, I muttered as I shoved my mobile phone into my pocket. Then I went down to the beauty salon below. Natalie, a client, was waiting there, and Mom was attending to another client. I greeted Natalie with a friendly smile. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's okay, but I'm sorry for the trouble with that matter. Natalie was considerate enough to not mention Brian's name. No, it's fine. We're just arguing about the compensation. Are you really okay? Natalie looked at me with concern. I faked a smile. He doesn't think he's done anything wrong, so he doesn't plan to apologize. That's tough. It would ignite a firestorm if it got out on the internet, but I don't plan to blow things up that much. I laughed as I responded. I noticed Mom's client eavesdropping. It's better than bad rumors spreading. I pretended not to notice and started my work. Eventually, Mom's client left while I was cutting Natalie's hair. Then Natalie spoke up. Serenity, about the client just now. Shouldn't you have asked her not to spread the word? It seemed Natalie also noticed the eavesdropping. If bad rumors spread, maybe they'll learn their lesson, I replied with a smile. Soon, Natalie's haircut was finished. I left the rest to Mom and retreated to the back. Then I tried calling Brian again, but he didn't answer. A few days later, on a day the beauty salon was closed, I went to Brian's company. However, Brian wasn't there. I was told he was at the store. Reluctantly, I headed to the store. As soon as I entered, I heard a familiar voice. Oh, what brings you here? Looking up, I saw Hazel standing at the counter. It's been a while. How vulgar of you to barge in here. Despite her bold words, Hazel seemed somewhat emaciated, likely affected by the revelation that Aurora's child wasn't Brian's. I addressed Hazel with a disdainful smile. Can't help it. He's been avoiding me. What did you say? I just want to be compensated. How do you plan to take responsibility? My words caused a stir among the customers in the store. Hazel, sensing the situation, began to panic suddenly. Please, not here. Stop this. But it's all about settling with money, right? That's better, isn't it? I said this exaggeratedly, causing quite a commotion around us. Unable to bear it, Hazel grabbed my hand and led me to the back of the store where Brian was working. Hazel addressed him. Brian, you have a visitor. Brian looked up, and our eyes met. Serenity? Since you've been ignoring me, I had to come to you. No, I wasn't ignoring you. It's just that... Brian became flustered. I told him, laughing. What about the child support and compensation? That is, well, you can pay, right, Mr. Future President? I said this sarcastically. Brian finally seemed to give in. All right, I'll pay. Just stop. This way, the discussion about child support and compensation finally began. However, this wasn't really a discussion. The details of the compensation had already been decided. It was just a matter of Brian agreeing and signing. He had been avoiding this because he was fixated on remarrying me. My visit was also to firmly reject any talk of remarriage. I watched Brian sign with a mocking smile. After leaving the store, I was approached by Aurora. She was wearing miserable clothes, a far cry from her appearance that day. "Long time no see. What happened to you? You look terrible." I said this mockingly, and Aurora scowled. "It's your fault because you wouldn't take the child." Aurora was kicked out by Brian because I refused to take her child, and she was blaming me. She didn't seem to understand the concept of reaping what you sow. However, this meant I would be criticized, so I diverted Aurora's attention. "Don't complain to me. Ask Brian for child support." "But Brian is angry that my child isn't his." Aurora looked down. I smirked unpleasantly. "I'm sure he'll listen now. He was in a good mood since he listened to me." Of course, that was a lie. However, if Aurora entered the store, an argument was bound to happen. But then it would seem as if, following our previous interaction, a disturbance had occurred. Brian's company's reputation could be destroyed in an instant. That's what I thought. "Is that so? Then I'll go." Aurora entered the store. I watched her go and then walked away from the shop. I didn't check what happened, but that evening, local news reported a woman causing a disturbance in the store. Hopefully, this taught them a lesson. I was smugly satisfied. However, a few days later, the situation took an unexpected turn. This was a few days after I met with Brian. While preparing to open the shop, the store's phone rang. "Thank you for calling. Is this for a reservation?" I assumed it was a customer and responded with the usual greeting. However, what came through the phone was Hazel's voice, mixed with the sound of a commotion. "This isn't about a reservation. What have you done?" Hazel?" I asked, taken aback. Hazel raised her voice. "It's your doing, isn't it? The store is swamped with people right now." "Excuse me? The store is popular. Is that what you mean?" "No. Everyone's here to cancel their orders." The call ended abruptly with loud voices in the background, leaving me perplexed. After getting permission from Mom, I headed to Brian's company store. As I approached, I saw a huge crowd outside. Dominic, Hazel, and Brian were trying to calm the gathered crowd. Soon, Hazel spotted me. The moment she did, Hazel raised her voice. "What are you going to do about this?" "What happened here?" "Rumors of bankruptcy are spreading, all because of you." I was at a loss, having no idea what she meant, so I asked Hazel to explain from the beginning. According to Hazel, after my visit to the store, a customer came in wanting to cancel a jewelry purchase. Hazel, having not yet ordered the product, accepted the cancellation. However, cancellations began to increase until a crowd formed. I had an inkling about the cause, but asked anyway. "Why did this happen?" "There's a rumor on the internet saying it's dangerous." While talking, the crowd pushed me away from Brian and the others, forcing me to leave the scene. I learned the full story a few days later. The whole incident unfolded like this. It all started with a conversation in my beauty salon. That day, a client who had overheard my conversation with Natalie posted anonymously on the internet. "There's someone arguing over compensation. The son of a jewelry company's president." They must have thought it would be safe to post anonymously. Actually, that alone wasn't the problem. But a few days later, Hazel and I ended up arguing in the store. Someone who saw that posted similarly online. There's a commotion at a certain jewelry shop. They're talking about compensation. Then the news about Aurora topped it off, making it easy to identify the company and store, leading to rumors that the store was in danger. This turned into bankruptcy rumors, causing customers to rush for cancellations, similar to a bank run during a financial crisis. Consequently, the company went bankrupt, leaving Dominic, Hazel, and Brian in debt. Now they're living on part-time jobs, leaving me worried about receiving child support and compensation. I should have taken the child support and compensation in one go, I occasionally thought, but living quietly and happily with my 4 daughters is fulfilling enough. My daughters are more important than money, without a doubt.
It's like a dream come true, a $300 million inheritance and our own company. When the employees saw my sister-in-law Mary celebrating my father's inheritance, they began to whisper to each other, The employees were ecstatic, and Mary said triumphantly, "Please be quiet. This is the point which my husband will inherit the company and $3 million. Hearing this, one of the employees began laughing uncontrollably. "What's the deal?" Sitting beside his perplexed wife, my elder brother was reading the will from the lawyer. My brother's face turned pale as he read. "Look at this." When my brother showed her the will, she screamed. Lucy is my name. I'm 29 years old and work for my father's business. When he was young, my father had the foresight to start a business from the ground up. It's since grown to a modest-sized enterprise with many employees. Of course, soon after launching the business, he incurred debt, and even as a small child, I could imagine how difficult it must have been for my father. Even after the company grew, I wanted to help my mother, who mostly did clerical back-office work. My parents encouraged me to attend college and pursue a career of my choosing, but my dream was to work for the company that my father had worked so hard to build. That was the first thing that came to mind when I was considering my career path after graduating from high school. Bob, a veteran employee, was the first person to mentor me when I joined my father's company. Bob patiently taught me the fundamentals of business without looking at me through the lens of being the president's daughter. I was able to learn more about the company thanks to Bob. On the other hand, my brother Tom, who's just 2 years older, went to college to study management. From a young age, he was proud to tell his college friends that his father was running a business and that he would eventually take over the business. Tom's friends would ask, "What are your plans after you graduate from college, Tom? Don't you have to look for work?" "I don't need to look for work because I'll be working for my father's company. I'll eventually be the company's president, so I'll take my time gaining management experience until then." "So you're going to be the next president of the company? Then your life will be safe and secure. I'm jealous of you." One of Tom's friends remarked, "Tom, you have a younger sister as well. Isn't there going to be a fight over who's the successor?" "Younger sister? I do, but she's a high school graduate and a simple person." "That's something you say a lot." "She appears to be doing some behind-the-scenes work for the company. If I become president, I'll keep her on as long as she listens to me." My brother was blowing money and fooling around under the guise of gaining experience as a business manager. He knew that if he behaved well, his friends would flock to him. There was no end to the number of women who wanted to date him because of his position as the company's next president. My brother chose the most flamboyant and attractive woman to marry. Mary was her name. After a lavish wedding, my brother and Mary went on a honeymoon abroad, built a mansion, and began their married life together. This was all done, according to him, to obtain the status of company president. Mary appeared to be content with her life with Tom, who listened to her every wish and allowed her to enjoy all of life's luxuries. I'm sure she wouldn't be interested in a life like mine, one where I work alongside my mother as a humble backstage employee in my father's company. "Lucy, you don't look like the CEO's daughter, do you?" she asked. "You don't appear to be the daughter of the company's president." Mary would often look at me and laugh whenever we met at family gatherings. "I don't like to live a lavish lifestyle," I said. She looked at me as if I were a moron. "I feel sorry for you because you were born as the daughter of a company's president, but you have no idea how to spend money." "What? You live at home with your parents and you have a lot of money, so you don't need to work so hard." Beside, with your title as president's daughter, shouldn't the men be flocking to you?" My brother agreed. "I'm sure that's true. Lucy's always been very modest, so no one would imagine that her father is the president. And apparently, she treats the other employees normally. Not come as a surprise. There are still many things I don't understand about my job. Many of my coworkers are better at their jobs than I am, so I can't act like a big shot," I refuted. But my brother said, astounded, "That's why you're useless. A boss should be able to stand tall so that he's not derided by his subordinates, such as his employees. Allow the other employees to handle the simple, tedious tasks. I suppose my father and I are the only bosses in this house." "You should not look down on your subordinates, no matter how powerful you are. My father, too." My brother cut me off when I tried to respond, looking annoyed and frustrated with me. He said, "A logical woman is not well liked by men." After my brother spoke up, Mary followed. "If you keep saying things like that, I'm sure you'll never get married. You should try to make yourself more appealing. Don't you agree, Tom?" "Yeah, well, when I become president, I might fire a humble employee like you, Tom said. My brother and Mary only said what they needed to say, and they quickly left. My mother, who'd remained silent during this interaction, consoled me after they had gone. She said, "You're doing an excellent job with the company, which greatly helps me and your father. Don't be concerned about what Tom says." My father nodded, a stern expression on his face. My parents had previously expressed their displeasure with my brother's ideas to his face, but after that, my brother and Mary became visibly upset and stopped visiting our house for over a month. I recalled the depressing atmosphere at the time, so I suggested to my parents, "Tom and Mary are free to say whatever they want." After that, Tom and Mary continued to live their lives as they pleased, dining lavishly at high-end restaurants and vacationing at famous resorts. The purpose was to give the impression that Tom would someday be president of my father's corporation. My father was working hard to expand his business at that time, but one night at home, he complained of chest pain. I said, "Dad, are you all right? Try and relax. I'll call an ambulance." "Lucy, get this." While we waited for the ambulance, my father pointed to a drawer and told me he had a letter for me. I quickly took the letter from the drawer. "I want you to read this. If anything happens to me, everything else is up to the lawyers," he said breathlessly before losing consciousness before the ambulance arrived. And despite being rushed to the emergency room, he died without regaining consciousness. My brother and Mary, who were away on a trip, were unable to be there for my father's death. They returned from their trip 2 days later at the conclusion of my father's funeral. Tom said, "We're just glad we arrived on time. I never imagined my father would pass away while we were on vacation." I was completely taken aback. My brother and Mary arrived at the funeral without a care in the world, making no mention of the fact that my mother and I had been left to handle the arrangements. I asked my brother about it in private so that the employees present would not hear. "Couldn't you have arrived home earlier?" "What? I couldn't because I'd already booked our return flight," my brother said, without apologizing, and then addressed the employees. "Thank you all for your help, and please, from now on, leave it to me to take my father's place in an honorable manner." Mary looked around at the employees who had quieted down in response to my brother's words, and she said admiringly, "That's exactly what Tom would do. Everyone is speechless because they're so impressed." "Right? It's only natural given my dignity." Pridefully, my brother asked, "Lucy, isn't the ceremony just about to start? Please hurry and show us the way." I was irritated by my brother's late appearance and his arrogance, but I led him, Mary, and the employees to the meal ceremony party table. My brother continued to act arrogantly as we ate. "Isn't the quality of this food questionable, Lucy? This will degrade our father's standing as president." Mother and I already discussed it, and we came to an agreement on the food. Besides, I don't want you telling me what to do. "This is why people have no idea what it means to be president." He gave orders not only to me, but also to the other employees. "Serving other people, you're pointless." I rushed to stop him after hearing him order Bob, a veteran employee, to do his bidding. "Oh, Tom, you're so bold. Don't be impolite to Bob." "What? They're rude people. Why should I be humble in front of a mere employee? These guys ought to have more regard for me, the president." Mary was also getting into the spirit of things, and she charged at me. "That's right. Stop talking down to Tom, the company's president, Lucy. If you continue to disobey him, he'll fire you. He has the authority." A man appeared just as my brother and his wife were blustering on. He said, "Please, excuse my interruption. Your father asked me to look after his inheritance." He was the lawyer my father had retained while he was still alive. Then I remembered. My father had told me shortly before his death that he had already hired a lawyer. It seemed my father had been considering his own death and had spoken with a lawyer several years before he collapsed. My brother and Mary's eyes lit up when the lawyer mentioned inheritance. They gladly welcomed the lawyer into their room. Tom said, "Thank you for attending. The sooner we complete this task, the better. Come on in." But as he spoke with the lawyer, Tom began to sob. "Wasn't my father's inheritance worth $300 million? When Mary heard this, she squealed with delight. $300 million? That much money in a company that belongs to us is a dream come true. When the employees heard this, they began to whisper. Mary triumphantly declared to the mourning employees, "Quiet. This is the moment when the company and its 300 million inheritance pass to Tom. Hearing this, one of the employees began laughing uncontrollably. What's the deal? My brother had received the will and was reading it next to Mary, who was wondering what the employees found so funny. My brother's face turned pale as she watched. Mary, according to the will, the entire company will be given to the eldest daughter, to Lucy. He stared at the will for some time and then began shouting, This is not possible. This is incorrect. In a troubled tone, the lawyer said, This is a legally enforceable will. My brother's voice became more and more choked. What? I couldn't care less. How can Lucy become president instead of me? Perhaps Dad was simply getting old and senile. Yes, your father lacks sound judgment. A will made by a senile old man is null and void. Hearing these words, I completely snapped. I couldn't let these two people insult my late father. I couldn't let anyone, even family members, bring down my father, who was a good man until the end. Enough! My brother Tom becoming president would be even more unthinkable in my opinion. The words infuriated my brother. What? Are you trying to tell me that I'm unfit to be president? I responded without hesitation. You are correct. How can you be president of this company if you've never even helped it? Don't be a moron. Mary and I even built a house fit for a president, and we went to great lengths to make me look the part. Do you mean building a mansion unsuitable for a man of your stature, or eating at fancy restaurants? That's not good for business. It's only money. After all, didn't Father cover the majority of the costs for the new house and extravaganza? How in the world would you know that? Just before he died, Dad left me a letter. In the letter, he detailed all the money he had spent on you and stated it would be given to you in a gift during his lifetime. As a result, your share of the estate is practically nothing. Mary panicked when she heard this. Wait a second. Isn't this inheritance worth $300 million? Did we already spend that much? It's not fair that we got so little out of it. The employee who had just burst out laughing quickly approached Mary and informed her that $300 million comes from the company, not from personal assets. I believe all the employees here are aware of this. Money from the company? Isn't that something that can be inherited? I informed Mary it is indeed. The money from the company is not inheritance for the family, so I'm pretty sure my brother's share is negligible. That breaks my heart. Oh no! Lucy was completely taken aback. The inheritance, $300 million. My brother stood up as if he'd had an epiphany, and he yelled at the employees. You want your company president to be a plain woman like Lucy? You must believe I'm more qualified to be president. I have the same amount of charisma as my father. Not one of his co-workers agreed with him. Bob then took the initiative and began talking with my brother. Your predecessor, your father, was a charismatic man who founded the company during his lifetime. However, you and he are not the same person. What? What you have is arrogance, looking down on us, not charisma. What? My brother became enraged when the employee calmly refuted him. Tom, you may be an employee of our company, but we, the employees, rarely see you at work. That's because I don't have time to do any work for the company. I was too busy networking with others. I couldn't have time to do work anyone could do. You call going on trips and fun at night networking? Isn't that all there is to say? Bob sighed and went on. In that regard, Lucy worked hard every day to learn more about the company while performing her unobtrusive, behind-the-scene duties. Bob, I sense the same sincerity in her as in your father. Lucy is the right person for the job, according to all of us at the company. The other employees nodded enthusiastically in response to his words. I was moved and responded, Thank you very much. To be honest, I'm surprised by the suddenness of the news, but having witnessed my father's enthusiasm for the company firsthand, I care about it just as much as you do. I look forward to your continued assistance. The employees warmly applauded as I bowed deeply. Encouraged by the applause, I said firmly, All of you here are important friends who have helped our business. Anyone who ignores them is unfit to be employee, let alone company's president. You can be fired by the president. My brother became irritated upon hearing this. What in the world are you on about? I'm your brother. What exactly are you on about? You even said that if you became president, you would fire me, brother. Ugh. I can't afford to pay a salary to an incompetent employee simply because he's family. This is completely absurd. Someone, please speak up. With a pitiful expression on his face, he begged for assistance from those around him, but the employees gave him only cold stares. Realizing that no one was on his side, my brother and Mary fled the scene. After that, Tom lost his job and survived on the small inheritance he had received, but the funds quickly ran out. Can you lend me money, Lucy? I threw him to the ground. I was disgusted by my brother, who even after being fired, did not try to find a new job and was still relying on his family to help him. I told my mother flatly not to give my brother any money. His friends, who had once been so supportive, abandoned him after learning that he had lost his position as president to his sister. When Mary married my brother, she had been planning to be the wife of the company president, and not a single one of her friends seemed to sympathize with her. When their living expenses became unsustainable, my brother and his wife decided to sell their mansion. The money from selling their house may have allowed my brother and his wife to relax and resume their previous lifestyle. However, without any income, my brother and his wife's savings quickly ran out. When they had nothing left to sell, they could no longer pay their living expenses. When they finally decided to give up and work, no one would hire them because they had never worked a day in their lives. Tom was eventually able to find a part-time job at a convenience store. Now he is working at a convenience store, a job he is unfamiliar with, and has been told that his work is inadequate by other part-time employees who are much younger than he is. Mary, too, can no longer be a full-time housewife like she used to be. She has joined the part-time housewives she used to mock, and she now works as a cashier at a supermarket from morning to night for a low monthly salary. I, on the other hand, am using what I've learned from my behind-the-scenes work to help the company. Bob and the other employees have been working with me, and the company has been steadily growing. My brother's case may have actually strengthened employee unity. I vowed to continue working with my mother to grow the business in order to bring more joy to my Father in heaven.
My name is Kim. I'm 45 years old and have become a health geek as I've started to feel back pain when I get up from bed, so I've been trying my best to run and eat healthy. Come to think of it, for the past few years, I've made only one wish when I pay a visit to a shrine on New Year's Day. May I stay healthy. In the past, I used to make a wish like, may I get along with the boy in the next class. I can feel my age from even the most humble of places. Today, I would like to talk about the time before I became a health geek. I hope you'll listen to it. Let me take you back 10 years ago. I was 35 years old, as cute as an idol, and everyone would look at me when I walked down the street. I'm sorry, that's a lie. I wish I looked like that back then. During that time back then, I quit the company I was working for and was guarding my home as best as I could. My brother, Scott, who is 2 years older than me, said to me, "I'm going to get married," and brought a beautiful woman to our house. I was really impressed by her captivating beauty. It's like she was shining. She was wearing heavy makeup and fake eyelashes. Fake eyelashes were made to make the eyes look bigger, but there were also glitter on the tips of her lashes. Her lips were glistening with gloss. To be honest, I was worried that she might catch a fly or something. Her hair was loosely curled, which gave it just the right amount of loose texture, and her nails were so finely designed that one could tell at a glance that they had been done at a salon. This is a pro. She's not one of those girls, that's for sure. At that moment, the house felt like a nightclub, I thought. My parents were probably a bit puzzled as well. My prediction came true. The woman, Remy, and my brother had met at a bar. My brother told me that he had seduced Remy, who was a lounge girl, as if it were a fairy tale, but I don't think that it was his skill at all. My brother is rich enough to be recognized at a glance. What do I mean? He's covered from head to toe in name brand clothes, which I tell him not to do because it's tacky. Glasses, suits, ties, pins, belts, shoes, everything name brand. If such a rich looking guy were to make a pass at me, I would be like, I'm not interested. I would fold my arms and say just that. A brand name wallet covered in jewelry. Then there's the Amex card that comes out of the wallet. I can imagine a brand new Gucci wallet and an Amex card coming out of it. Then I would show my beautiful smile just for you. And it's not right that my brother, who was born without our mother's sense of style, and whose only merit is his kindness, could have a girlfriend like that. Oh, come on. I'm so prejudiced against both my brother and Remy. It's rude, I thought to myself. But it was also true that I couldn't shake off the image of Remy's flamboyant appearance, which I didn't think she had come to greet me for marriage, coupled with the fact that she was wearing a revealing miniskirt. Moreover, I learned from my brother for the first time that day that Remy was only 20 years old. I was 35. I had no idea that I was going to have a younger sister-in-law. I already didn't know how I should behave. Remy-chan, no. Sister? My head was in turmoil. My mother said, 37 and 20? My father said, if my son chooses. His face was like a samurai that heard his son chose to join the war. Scott may or may not have known of our embarrassment. I'm going to marry Scott, so please take care of me. Remy laughed in a nonchalant manner. We were stunned from start to finish as we literally received only a marriage report without any lively conversation from Remy. One night later, my brother said to me, I'm sure you must have felt embarrassed, and I understand how you feel. I want you to come to a dinner party with me and Remy next time. If you just relax and talk to her, you'll see that she's a good girl, he said. It is true that we have fixed our impression of Remy by her appearance and the way she speaks. Maybe she is a good girl if we talk to her. I didn't talk to Remy much yesterday. I was not keen on the idea, but I decided to get to know Remy properly for the sake of his happiness. My parents seemed to feel the same way, and with the agreement of everyone in the family, a dinner party hosted by Scott was held the following weekend. Surprisingly, the mood at the dinner was friendly from start to finish. When you think about it, Remy is a lounge girl. In other words, she is in the hospitality business. She had the skill to draw out good conversation even from people like our family, who were a bit more reserved. She would talk about Scott and other topics, so we never lost track of what she was talking about. From the outside, Remy gave the impression of living in a different world from ours. I was prejudiced. I'm sorry. I reflected on that. Then, a problem arose when I was about to return to my seat after leaving the restroom at the restaurant. No, they were all really plain, especially his mother, with her face full of spots and wrinkles. I really can't take it like that. I don't want to grow old like that. I thought they were rich, but their house was normal. I really think I married him too soon. I'm afraid that I won't be able to stand his father, who is too much of an old man. I think I'll make up an affair and get a divorce as soon as I can. My future sister-in-law is older than me. She's too old to have a boyfriend. She's fat and a neat. She's so stereotypical. I've got to get out of here before I'm told I have to take care of him in the future. Has my prejudice gone so far that my eyes and ears have gone crazy? I am. Remy, my future sister-in-law, is happily talking bad about our family with her cell phone in one hand in the aisle. Because of that, I couldn't go back to my seat. What should I do? What are you talking about? Should I say that? Or should I keep quiet? While I was agonizing over this, the phone call seemed to have ended and Remy went back to her seat. I returned after a short pause and wondered why I should care. Before I knew it, the dinner party was over and I wondered whether I should break the friendly mood. After that, Scott continued to hold many more dinner parties until the very last minute before the wedding, out of his strong desire to make Remy a member of the family, both in name and in reality. Our parents began to enjoy them. Remy's reputation skyrocketed. Everyone was surprised, and the atmosphere among the family members toward her was great. I didn't record Remy's phone call. I didn't even hear the other person's voice. In addition, Remy is a very good girl in front of my family. Her acting is so good, I probably would have believed her if she told me that phone call was a misunderstanding or a mishearing. Even now, I wonder if I just misheard her. I can't help but wonder. He's still my big brother after all. What should I do? I spent many days scratching my head. Then one day, I received a message from my brother. Remy wants to go out for dinner with you. I'll pay for it, so don't worry. He pointed to a map of a certain restaurant. It turned out to be a rather expensive Italian restaurant. I was happy to get free meals, but why did he choose only me? I'm scared. But a neat with so much time on her hands has no reason to refuse. So I went to the Italian restaurant. Kim, thank you for coming. I honestly did not feel bad when Remy recognized me and welcomed me with great joy. I always thought that she was very good at making people happy. I thought I must have misheard her on the phone. However, as the meal progressed, I gradually began to feel uneasy. Kim, it's been quite a while, but You heard my phone call, didn't you? Yes? At our first dinner party, I went back to my seat and you came right back, but the woman who went to the restroom after you came out from behind me at the same time as you. There's only one woman's restroom there. You didn't go in there together, did you? Remy laughed as she said this. Oh my goodness. I'm being watched so closely. Indeed, if I recall, I think woman went into the restroom while I was listening to the phone call. To be honest, I don't remember much because I was panicked by the content of Remy's call. Speechless and unable to pause, I took a mouthful of pasta in front of me. Food takes precedence over chatting. You're getting fatter and fatter, aren't you? She laughed at me. You're trying to provoke me, aren't you? I was aware of it. I knew it. Don't tell Scott or your parents about that conversation, okay? Remy laughed as she said this. As a side note, I gained weight because I was working for a bad company, which destroyed my life and caused me to overeat due to the stress caused by unreasonable pressure from my boss. At one point, I was petite and skinny, and now I gained weight because I was always putting something in my mouth to relieve stress. It's true that I'm fat, but now that I'm taking care of my mental health, I feel like I can open up and say, what's wrong with being fat? If I were a sumo wrestler, I wouldn't think it was bad, but I'm not a sumo wrestler, and I'm even bigger than the standard weight of one. I'm just fine with my size, because it's important for me to be able to live a non-stressful life. Remy has no right to tell me what to do when I'm not bothering her in the first place. Since you've heard this story, you already know that you and your mother are a little embarrassing. You understand, don't you? No. I've been told I'm embarrassing time and time again. I get it. I wouldn't say my thought out loud. I just imagined that I was somewhere else. I can't tell your mother-in-law not to come to the ceremony, but... Kim, you're honestly my sister. You don't have to go. It's hard to move when you're fat, isn't it? I'll send you a wedding invitation as a formality, but I'd rather you not attend the wedding because you have other plans. Oh, and don't worry. I'll get your congratulatory gift. $1,500? I should even get more from you than that. Do you really think Anit has such important plans that she has to cancel attending her brother's wedding? There's no such thing as too fat to move when I've come all the way to this restaurant. I calmed down the desire to plunge my clenched fist into Remy's face. I understand. I'll be absent as you wish. I don't care about anything. And with that, I left the restaurant. When I got home, I told my mother, I'm not going to Scott's wedding, I said, and my mother replied, What's the matter with you all of a sudden? My mother panicked, and my father said, What's going on? My father wondered. Remy told me that she'll take the congratulatory gift of $1,500 from me and ask me not to come to the wedding. Fat people are embarrassing. I summarized a bit, but it was the same thing. Really? Remy said that? My father and mother, who could not hide the puzzled look on their faces, as if to say, I can't believe it, but I can't believe my daughter would tell a lie. I understand, because I've been feeling the same way as you right now. But listen to this. I gently placed the recorder on the table. Yes, we were eating alone this time, so I had it with me just in case something happened. I wanted to have proof this time. When Remy asked me if I had been eavesdropping on her phone calls, I turned it on. When my parents heard the recording, they turned pale, angry, red, and negative 100 times. After hearing everything, She mocked my family! My father yelled and slammed his hands on his desk. I told him that I was wary of Remy because she had said something similar at the first dinner party. He brought a nasty wife. My mother's head was in her hands. No, she's not his wife yet. My brother hasn't registered his marriage yet. My parents looked at me with surprise. I see. No, but what about the wedding? If we offer to cancel it, isn't Scott the one who will ask for a cancellation fee? My father said anxiously. Don't worry, I have a good idea. I won't let you lose a penny, I replied emphatically. We then split up and called Scott's invited guests one by one to inform them to cancel their participation for the wedding. I set up a web-based recording of the call so that the people who would be attending would know what had happened. Of course, I could have told them what had happened verbally, but I wanted those who didn't believe me to be able to listen to the live audio. It's not obvious at first sight, but it is obvious at first hearing. On the phone, we apologized for being lenient in our choice of wife and for getting everyone involved, and sincerely told them why we didn't want them to attend. I would be lying if I said I wasn't anxious. It would be like exposing the family's pettiness, and I was afraid that no one would listen to such an outrageous request, and that I would be disowned by my relatives. But when I picked up the phone and said, "My parents want to help their precious son, and we know it's selfish of us, but please help," surprisingly, everyone agreed with us.
"You can't let him marry like that."
I was even scolded. He was right. In the end, we managed to inform everyone about the situation and get them to not attend the wedding. We told the wedding hall that due to a series of circumstances, the groom's side would not be attending, except for people from his business whom we did not have contact information for. We were sorry to have caused so much trouble.
"If that's the case, then there's nothing to be done about that."
I was able to convince them. I think it was more like the heart of the person in charge was moved, rather than the consensus of the wedding hall. I may have given them a hard time behind the scenes, but I will surely remember this kind gesture. Next was Scott. 3 weeks before the wedding, I told him that everyone would not be attending. He was stunned after I told him everything about Remy.
"I understand,"
he said. If my brother thinks he wants to get married no matter what, this plan would fail, but that's my sister's instinct. I'm sure he'll be fine. Finally, late on the night before the wedding, a storm broke out at our house. "What's going on?" Remy stormed into our house with her parents. Scott was behind them. "Oh, Remy, what's wrong?" my mother said, as if nothing was wrong. "What do you mean, what's wrong? Suddenly this week, the number of calls saying they won't be at the wedding slowly increased. I thought it was strange, so I asked Scott about it, and he said that his family won't be there either. What is this on a beautiful day?" That's as it should be. We had asked everyone in the wedding hall to cancel their participation early, but we had told them to notify their absence at the last minute. If I had at least kept quiet about the phone call until the wedding, the ceremony would have gone off without a hitch, but Remy went out of her way to contact me. I was convinced that her character, which is unexpectedly reserved and acts immediately when she gets an idea, would be exposed by making me feel rushed. "You said that this family is embarrassing. He didn't want his parents to come to the ceremony either. I just told it like it is, and all the relatives decided not to go, okay?" "Don't lie to me. How could you try to ruin such an important day with a lie? The number of attendees is less than half. What are you going to do about it?" Remy's father and mother were half crazy. Poor Remy. They hugged her close. "What do you mean by this? Do you mean you want to break up the marriage?" Remy's mother glared at us sharply, but that was not for us to answer. "Scott, I don't think so. But are you just going to stand there the whole time?" I asked him, but he looked as if he didn't know what he should do. What do you want to do? The most important thing to remember is that you are the one who has to decide what to do. Do you want to get married? At my words, my father said,
"I don't approve,"
he said, but I restrained him. It was important to let Scott give his own answer so that he would have no regrets. This is the woman he vowed to marry. This is her true nature. She's an evil woman. I can understand why it would be hard to believe right away, but my brother is not a man without judgment. I believed in him.
"I loved Remy, and I really wanted to marry her."
You see, Scott's also saying this, so you freaks should look at the situation properly. Remy, thinking she had my brother's words behind her and perhaps loosening up, unintentionally called us "you freaks." My brother seemed to have noticed the change and laughed sadly.
"Oh, wow. I'm really not a good judge of character. I've never been in love, so when I thought I was going to marry a beautiful girl, I got all excited."
That's because you have a track record of being unattractive for your entire life, but you keep your expectations too high. Look in the mirror of reality.
"That's right. The blood of unattractiveness runs in my family from the generation of my great-grandfathers who passed away. This family has been unpopular for generations. You too should be proud to be unpopular."
Hey, I was never unpopular.
"Mom, don't lie to us."
My parents and I were torturing Scott. He laughed.
"I'm glad I had a good relationship. Even if it was only for a while, I've made up my mind. I'm not going to get married."
At that moment, my parents' expressions brightened, and I gave them a high five. "Wait, what's going on? You can't just decide on your own and then yell and scream about it with your family," Remy shouted angrily. "That's right. The wedding is tomorrow. Please take this more seriously. What is this family embarrassment you've been talking about? It was Remy's mother who asked me that. Finally, this question came. It was like a gut punch. Well, if she hadn't come to me, I would have just told her myself someday, but it's more likely to resonate with the other person if she is interested and asks me. If I tried to force them to listen, they would just ignore me. Why, thank you for asking. Let me show you why the wedding is cancelled. I played back the audio. Remy's parents' faces gradually turned pale as they listened to the audio. This is why. But Remy was strangely calm. I've heard her say many things about our family in addition to this recording. That's why I was the only one called on this day. And the fact that she herself mentioned it in the audio as the reason why she wanted to see me is the best proof of that. To my words, Remy said, "It's fake." And Remy's parents shook their heads.
I'm sorry. My child is entirely to blame.
It was Remy's father who spoke up first.
I was trying to raise her in a carefree way, but it seems I gave her too much freedom. I'm sorry for causing you trouble.
Seeing the father bowing deeply. What? Remy was upset. Wait a minute, Dad! Why are you apologizing? You apologize too. Without a pause, it was Remy's mother who raised her voice. I had no idea that you had become such an insultingly rude girl. I came to your house because I believed in you, and you have brought me so much embarrassment. Don't make me apologize to the family's father. What? What's wrong with you? Even you, Mother? Aren't you on my side? At that moment, Remy's father slapped her cheek with a loud smack.
That's enough. Since when did you become such a shallow child? Don't forget that you even ruined Scott's life.
Behind Remy's father, Scott was blurting out an extremely heated statement.
I'm not going to get married anyway, so my life won't be ruined by this. Don't let her ruin anyone else's.
I almost laughed at him. The fact that he was responding more openly than anyone else somehow felt like it was in our family's blood.
Scott, I want to let you and the rest of your family know that I am truly sorry about this.
Remy's father forced her to bow her head, and her mother bowed her head as well. As if that wasn't enough, Remy's father and mother got down on their knees. Look up! We were so impatient that we said that to them right away.
No, I didn't know I was being so rude, but I am ashamed because I didn't know. I can't make amends by humiliating you like this and causing you trouble. The only proper apology is to get down on my knees.
To be honest, I didn't feel humiliated, but I could feel Remy's father's thoughts painfully.
Let's cancel the wedding.
What? Dad? The wedding is already tomorrow. We'll have to pay the cancellation fee in full.
So what? You should be thankful that you can settle it with money. You did something that you don't deserve any amount of forgiveness. You should be thankful to your family for exposing her, Scott.
Remy's father yelled at us with red eyes, and Remy's mother turned her head down in embarrassment. I am so sorry. She bowed her head again and again. Wait a minute! Wait! Dad, I can't pay!
We'll pay. You pay us back, no matter how many years it takes, and we'll never see you again.
Are you kidding me? She pulled on her father's clothes frantically. Hey, why am I being kicked out? Dad, say something. Mom! Remy shouted. If you were a girl who understood that, you wouldn't be in this situation. If you knew what you were doing, you wouldn't have let this happen. Remy's mother looked at her with deep contempt. You're kidding. Remy slumped down on the floor in a heap. I chuckled inwardly at this unexpectedly violent turn of events. I wouldn't be surprised if she was disowned. Even if you're plain or fat, you at least have fangs to fight. Don't underestimate us, or you'll be in a lot of pain.
Scott, and your family too. As for cancellations, don't worry. We'll pay for the cancellation and all the money you've spent up to this point.
I almost smiled, thinking that it was being helpful, but then I put on a serious face. Thank you very much. I bowed my head. My parents' faces were also flustered, so I tried not to say, Yay! I couldn't understand what they were trying to say. Scott, taking advantage of the fact that Remy and her family could not see him, expressed his joy with a small amazing without making a sound. I know how you feel, but you're the only one who didn't do anything, so calm down a little, I thought to myself. After that, less than a month after the cancellation of the ceremony, Remy's parents gave us $22,000 as a consolation payment, which was the sum of the money spent up to this point, including the betrothal money, in addition to the confectionery money and the cancellation fee. As for the fee, Remy's parents said it would be very difficult if we had to go to court, and we would have to pay the court costs, so Remy's father told me that he would give the price he asked for. We were honestly troubled by the price, but we thought it should be a reasonable amount, so we offered an average amount in the market. However, what Remy's father actually gave us was the amount we had specified, plus 11,000. To be honest, I don't know if we would have received this amount even if we had gone to court. I'm sure that there would have been a lot of crying and stress, because it usually doesn't work out like a fairy tale. I would like to thank Remy's parents for their sincerity. The girl in question was evicted from her home penniless after her parents took all her savings to pay off the debt. She said she had been living half homeless, moving from one friend's house to another, and camping out at train stations when she can't find a place to stay. Her parents seemed to have come to terms with the fact that it was their daughter's own fault, and it didn't matter if she was put in harm's way. I think that her parents have finally started showing her tough love.
I have told her to show her face once a month to repay the loan, so I can confirm her survival.
How complicated it must have been for her parents during that situation. 10 years have passed since then. He married his wife, who was not flashy or dazzling at all, but was an excellent cook who worked at a Japanese kappa restaurant. Since Scott loved to eat and walk around, she must have literally grabbed him by the stomach. Since getting married, he rarely eats out, but flies home to enjoy his wife's delicious cooking, and I honestly didn't want to work for a company anymore, so I became a freelance translator. I was already somewhat familiar with languages from my previous job, where I had been involved in sales and marketing to foreigners. When I learned that freelance translators were in demand, I studied hard and was able to successfully achieve my goal. I'm now earning a significantly larger annual salary in a much looser environment than when I was working for that bad company. What was also lucky was that when I was immersed in my studies, my overindulgence completely retracted, and I returned to my lowest weight before I started working. I'm no longer fat or skinny, but average. Well, I don't know if average is something to be proud of. I don't know if I'm proud to call myself average, but I'm very happy to be back to my normal. And thanks to my translation work, I married a beautiful looking husband from England, if I do say so myself. When I introduced him to my family, Scott said,
"You're cheating," or "He won't fall for the plain gene in you."
Needless to say, I was told a lot. My husband, holding a picture of the Japanese novelist Murasaki Shikibu in one hand, said, "Kim's face is very Japanese. I really like Kim's Japanese-like face," he said. In case you're wondering, my husband did not offend me at all. He was really complimenting me. It's a complicated situation, but since my husband liked me, I think it's okay if I look like Murasaki Shikibu. My daughter is now 4 years old, and although we live in a strange house where English and Japanese are mixed together, it is a very lively and happy life. Speaking of worries, my daughter's bedtime reading is a picture book of the Tale of Genji, one of Murasaki's novels. I thought, how can she sleep with this? I wondered if this would help her sleep, but surprisingly, she seems to like it, and today she fell asleep peacefully.
Come on, what's with that attitude? You could at least cooperate for the New Year's celebration. Don't you think it's embarrassing that we're the only ones without any family around while everyone else's relatives are here?
I was too consumed with unbearable pain to listen to what my husband was saying. Oh, wait a second, my stomach hurts really bad right now. I tried to get the point across, but my husband was not listening.
What? You're probably faking it. You really are a coward.
Please, it really hurts. If I have to go to the hospital, I won't be able to take care of our daughter. Come home now.
Seriously, cut it out. I'm telling you not to embarrass me in front of the relatives. Don't embarrass me, just suck it up if your stomach hurts.
My husband yelled and then hung up the phone. Exhausted from dealing with him, I sank into a chair only to feel a growing wetness in my lower body. Oh no! My water just broke. I tried to move but was paralyzed by increasing pain. I have to deal with the water breaking, but what about my daughter? I was pondering this when my daughter walked into the room concerned. What's wrong, Mom? My name is Jennifer, a 35-year-old office worker. I live with my husband, John, also an office worker, and our third-grade daughter, Sarah. I had my daughter when I was 24 and haven't been pregnant since, so I thought I wouldn't have another child. However, I'm pregnant again after 9 years and due this January. As unexpected as this timing is, it's a joyful event that makes my heart race. My daughter is also beyond excited to have a new sibling. Sarah will help out, she says it with such joy. But there is one person who's not thrilled about this pregnancy. My husband, John. I'm currently on maternity leave, and while I'm at home, he can't help but make snide comments about how I'm not making money yet still costing him. Excuse me? Whose child does he think this is? I'm pregnant with your baby. I'm on paid leave. I hold back from saying anything, otherwise his pride gets triggered and he becomes furious. So I'm brushing off the sarcastic remarks from my husband, but lately, my daughter has been stepping in to respond in my place. Taking after someone, my daughter is quite the eloquent speaker, and my husband is being out-talked by our 9-year-old daughter. Mom's taking time off to have a baby, she says. Dad, you have no idea how hard childbirth is. You should be supporting her. Mom has been doing housework even while pregnant. Why can't you say such terrible things to Mom, Dad? Whenever she hits him with logic, he flushes red and retreats to his room. Thanks to her, I have been spared from John's nagging, which has been a relief. Sarah has even been reading books on pregnancy and childbirth, educating herself on the topic. I am so proud of how smart she's becoming. Still, it feels wrong to let our daughter witness our marital disputes. Of course, she would prefer if her parents got along. While I'm glad she's on my side, I can't shake off the guilt about John, who's usually out working, so I make sure to at least do all the housework flawlessly. In the midst of all this, an incident that would spark major tension arose. My husband loves his family home. He goes back for Thanksgiving and New Year's celebrations and pretty much any other occasion. I would be fine if he went alone, but he always insists I come along.
It's your duty as my wife. Don't embarrass me. The whole family is there.
He would say stuff like this, dismissing my feelings and drag me along. It's a 6-hour drive to his parents' house, so a day trip is out of the question. We have to stay overnight. His family has even said to me, we understand it's a lot, so just come for Thanksgiving and New Year's. But my husband would counter,
Don't you care about my family?
Why do we have to go every time? Even your mom understands. And isn't it a bit too much? Even when I say this, he argues.
It's where I grew up. Showing up with my wife and kids is how I honor my parents. Are you trying to get in the way of that?
This kind of disagreement happened a lot. In fact, when our daughter was born, I had complications and fainted at his family home, ending up in the hospital. Even so, he insists we should go back for the next New Year's celebration. No matter what happens, I want to stay home this time, I plead.
It's not like pregnancy is a sickness. There's no reason to worry, he says. You didn't end up in the hospital this time, right? So it's fine. So, are you using pregnancy as an excuse because you really just don't want to go?
He keeps making these baffling statements. Riding in a car for 6 hours while pregnant is just out of the question. I would rather rest at home, especially given what happened last time. I was lucky I didn't have to be hospitalized. Please, listen to me. You're the only one I can rely on if anything happens. Can you just stay home for New Year's this year? Despite my plea, my husband only got angrier, his face turning red.
You just don't want to go to my parents' house, do you? There's no reason to worry. You've been seeing the doctor regularly.
I never said I didn't want to go. I'm genuinely concerned.
Fine, then you talk to my family about it.
With that, he started dialing his parents' house. He handed me the mobile phone. Reluctantly, I took the phone and William, John's brother, answered. William and his wife live with John's parents. In fact, I think it's unnecessary for us to make frequent visits when William and his family are already there.
Hello, John.
William, sorry, it's Jennifer?
Oh, it's you, Jennifer. What's up?
William, I'm sorry, but we would like to stay home for the New Year celebration. Our due date is around that time. Hearing that, William replied,
I understand. Of course, that's fine. You're going through a lot right now. There is no need to make a special trip for family gatherings.
His words, please take care of yourself, made me tear up. William continued with kind words.
We should have been more considerate last time. I'm sorry. We should have stopped you from coming in the first place, considering your condition.
No, it was my fault.
Don't say that, Jennifer. You're the one who is going through the most. It's only natural for everyone to be considerate of you. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help. We are just as happy to have a new addition to the family, you know?
What a great brother-in-law he is. I ended up venting about my husband. My husband insists on going back to his parents' house for the New Year's celebration. Even when I say I'm worried because the baby could arrive any moment, he dismisses me by saying it'll be fine since I'm not hospitalized. He even got angry with me, asking if I'm not interested in respecting his parents. Choking back tears as I explained to my brother-in-law, he asked,
Can you put John on speaker? What's up, William? John, you're planning on taking Jennifer to your parents' house for the New Year's celebration, right? Yeah, I am, and yet Jennifer is being stubborn and doesn't want to go. Do you even understand why Jennifer doesn't want to go to your parents' house? Huh? It's probably because she finds it awkward at my parents' place, isn't it? She's just being selfish.
My husband's rude remark angered my brother-in-law.
Have you forgotten what happened last time? What will you do if the same thing happens again? When Jennifer collapsed and was hospitalized, we were genuinely worried. We were relieved that nothing serious happened. Do you think it's fine this time? Are you a doctor? The symptoms Jennifer was diagnosed with last time could be life-threatening for both her and the baby. How would you take responsibility if something happened to Jennifer or the baby? And you say it's okay to go, but that's a 6-hour drive. What if Jennifer suddenly falls ill and loses consciousness on the highway? How many minutes would it take for an ambulance to get there? Are you really thinking about Jennifer and the baby's safety? Even a child knows what's more important between a family visit and the birth of your child.
Finally, my husband calmed down after hearing all this from my brother-in-law. My husband's face turns pale. Seriously, he's a terrible husband if he doesn't understand the gravity of the situation until I spell it out for him. Then my brother-in-law graciously says,
I'm really sorry for the trouble my brother has caused you. I apologize on his behalf. Please enjoy the new year at home. I'll let the rest of the family know.
My husband mumbles,
William worries too much.
With an uncomfortable look on his face. From now on, I'll consult my brother-in-law before listening to my husband. Thanks to my brother-in-law's stern words, I was able to relax at the beginning of December despite the pre-birth drama. But as the end of the month approaches, my husband starts complaining about not being able to go to his parents' house. Finally, New Year's Eve arrives. I have finished cleaning the house and preparing for the New Year's celebration. I was relaxing with my daughter when my husband says,
I need to buy something. I'll be back.
And drives off around 3 p.m. And then night falls with no sign of him returning. I call him, but he doesn't answer. I have no choice but to eat dinner and watch the ball drop with my daughter. What on earth is going on? I wonder this in the back of my mind as we watch the countdown concert on TV and ring in a peaceful New Year's Eve with laughter. The next day, despite the new year arriving, he still hasn't returned in the morning. I wish he would at least get in touch. It's worrying when there is no news from him. Although there is no snow in our area, there's still a chance he could be in an accident. Feeling uneasy, my daughter and I nibble on the New Year's feast. After finishing our meal, I was relaxing when my husband called. It sounded chaotic in the background.
Hey, you should come over too.
Wait, what are you talking about? Where?
It's my parents' house, duh.
Seriously?
Everyone's here having a drink, so hurry up.
Turns out he was at his parents' house for New Year's Eve. Wait, you told me you were going out to get groceries. Was that a lie?
I don't know, but I'll eat your share if you don't show up.
He was clearly drunk. Despite my previous appeals, nothing had gotten through to him. My daughter looked on concerned. Fearing a fight, I took the call into another room. Listen, ask William or someone else to take you home. Just as I said that, a sudden pain struck me. Regardless, my husband's tone became increasingly irritated.
What's with that attitude? I've been putting up with your whims this whole time. Cooperate for the New Year celebration at least.
I had asked him to hold off just for the New Year celebration. It's not like he had cooperated with anything before.
It's embarrassing if we're the only ones not present when all the relatives are there.
He went on and on about that, but my attention was consumed by excruciating pain. Oh, wait a second. My stomach hurts really bad. The pain is getting worse. I tried to explain, but my husband was not willing to listen.
Really? You're probably faking it. You're such a coward.
Please, it's really hurting. If I get hospitalized, I won't be able to take care of our daughter. Come home now.
Enough is enough. I told you not to embarrass me in front of my relatives. Don't drag my name through the mud. If your stomach hurts, suck it up.
My husband yelled over the phone and then the call disconnected. Drained from the conversation with my husband, I slumped into a chair. That's when I felt it. A sudden wet sensation down below. Oh no. My water broke. I tried to get up, but the pain intensified, making it impossible to move. I have to clean up after my water breaking, but what about Sarah, our daughter? Fighting through the pain and lost in thought, Sarah walked into the room worried. Mom, where's Dad? Sorry, Sarah, can you come here first? What? Mom, what's wrong? Sarah, can you call an ambulance with this phone? Frozen by pain, all I could do was ask for her help. Sarah looked panicked, unsure of what to do. I realized I had never taught her how to call an emergency line. I had to tell her how to do it while I'm still conscious. Just then, Sarah said, I'm going to get the neighbor. and she dashed out of the house. After a minute, our neighbor arrived. Sarah knew she couldn't handle it and immediately called an adult for help. Jennifer, are you okay? I'm calling an ambulance right now. Our neighbor did just that, and in that moment, I was grateful for having such a supportive community. Sarah held my hand and rubbed my back until the ambulance arrived. During the ride, our neighbor contacted my parents. Finally, the ambulance got there. I gave birth later that day. The next day, both parents arrived at the hospital. It's a healthy baby boy born a bit early. Tried reaching out to my husband but couldn't get through. He never showed up. He finally comes on January 3rd, brought by my brother-in-law. Brother-in-law apologized to me even though it wasn't his fault.
Sorry, we're late bringing my brother here, he says. He had his phone off since New Year's and didn't realize you were going through all this.
Brother-in-law is apologizing while the person who should be apologizing is sulking beside him. Turns out my dad had been trying to call my husband's cell but couldn't get through, so he finally reached him on our home phone. William, I appreciate you coming, but I don't want to see my husband right now. I'm even considering divorce, I say. At this, my previously sullen husband looks up, eyes wide.
What? You're getting too full of yourself. Who do you think you are talking about divorce?
Brother-in-law is stunned.
Hey, John, what are you saying?
But my husband keeps insulting me.
She's just being dramatic. She probably just wants us to worry about her.
Just then, the door to the hospital room opens.
What's going on here?
It's my dad, Thomas.
Oh, Thomas?
My husband looks shaken at his arrival. Dad had just taken my daughter out for lunch.
John, is this how you speak to my daughter regularly? I mean, answer me clearly.
My husband straightens up at my father's angry voice.
You accused her of faking it while she was in so much pain? Her water broke. Can you still say that looking at Jennifer now? Enough. She'll be recuperating at my house for a while, and you are not seeing her or the baby until further notice, understand? So you get it now?
Seems like my husband finally understood the mess he's made.
What's gonna happen when I'm at work? Who's gonna take care of me?
I take that back. He's still as useless as ever.
Take care of yourself. Our daughter managed to work and handle house chores before going on maternity leave, didn't she? If you're an adult, act like one.
My father shouted. My husband still had more complaints, but my brother-in-law intervened.
I'm really sorry for my brother's actions. Congratulations on the new arrival. Please accept this gift, even though it's late and not much.
My brother-in-law handed us a generous baby gift and then left, taking my husband with him. Dad, I'm really sorry for causing you trouble.
When he came to ask for your hand in marriage, I thought he was a more reliable man.
After that, I took some time to recover at my parents' home. Good thing my daughter was on winter break. After about 2 weeks, my dad and I went back to the home where my husband was. We left our new baby and daughter with my mom. Finally, face to face with my husband, the house was just as I had feared, dirty and dusty. He had been living off fast food. The empty boxes filled multiple trash bags. My father and I sat down with him in the living room. I'll get straight to the point. I want a divorce. I pushed the divorce papers towards him.
You serious about divorce?
You can't even say thank you or well done for giving birth.
Well, you're a mom. Isn't giving birth just part of the job?
My husband spat out the words almost immediately after the conversation began. My father's face grew increasingly stern. My husband continued to spout nonsense.
I just found out it's a boy. Well, then I don't want a divorce. I've always wanted a son. I'll raise him to be a baseball player. You know, Ichiro became a huge star practicing with his dad. I want to do that kind of stuff.
I was so dumbfounded, I couldn't even speak. What does he think his own children are? Ichiro's father never saw his son as a cash cow, unlike you. Unable to stand our silence any longer, the living room door burst open. I tried to wait until the right moment to intervene, but I can't stand this anymore. In came mother-in-law. My husband was shocked by her sudden entrance. John, get a grip. Who do you think enables you to go to work stress-free? Who's taking care of the kids instead of you? Who's cooking every day? Do you have any idea who keeps this household running? It's all thanks to Jennifer. In fact, this house falls apart when Jennifer gone for just 2 weeks. You're sorely lacking in gratitude. Realize how blessed you have been. No more troubling Jennifer. Divorce is the only option. Mother-in-law yelled and my husband cowered and finally signed the divorce papers. And so my divorce was finalized. Through my lawyer, I secured child support payments for both my daughter and son. As for my ex-husband, he was forcefully taken back to his parents' house and is now being put to work by his parents and brother-in-law. He's apparently complaining daily about wanting to escape. How ironic that a man who used to love going home is now saying the exact opposite. Meanwhile, I've successfully returned to work after maternity and parental leave. Thanks to my in-laws' consideration, I got to keep the house I had been living in with my ex-husband as part of the property settlement. I am genuinely grateful for the kindness of my in-laws who didn't want to make my daughter feel lonely by transferring schools. As for my daughter, she has had enough of her dad and promptly refused to see him after the divorce. I have no intention of letting my son see him either. I'll let his family work on straightening out his twisted personality. If the day ever comes when he changes his ways and the kids want to see him, I might consider it, but the day might never come. No matter what, I'm committed to raising my children to be responsible individuals. I'll continue to work hard every day, all for you, my precious ones.
I got rid of all of your stuff because you decided to go home without telling me. When I returned from caring for my mother back home, these shocking words were thrown at me by my husband. A quick look around the house confirmed that none of my personal belongings were anywhere in sight. Why would you do such a thing? You left me here all alone to go back home. It's your fault for not listening to me. With that, my husband flung the newspaper he was reading at me. I let out a heavy sigh at his childish behavior. My name is Lucy. I am due to retire at the age of 65 this year, but have accepted an offer to continue working till I'm 70. My husband Joshua and I were introduced by mutual friends. We married 2 years ago. Both of us had been previously divorced and we didn't have any children together. Living as a couple in our late 50s turned out to be more exciting than we'd anticipated, despite our busy work lives. However, ever since my husband retired a year ago and started staying at home, his attitude towards me has slowly changed. From the start of our marriage, he has been somewhat dominant at home. Constant complaints and snide remarks about my housekeeping have worn me down emotionally. As we were newlyweds, I was concerned about our lives in old age. Divorce wasn't an option back then, no matter how tough things got. Well, dinner? I haven't seen someone in such a long time, I'm definitely going. I received a call on my cell phone from a friend from college inviting me for a meal after not seeing each other for several years. We were all so busy that we hardly had the chance to get together, so I immediately accepted the invitation. We agreed to have lunch together the following Sunday. I was looking forward to meeting my old friends and worked hard to make it that day. To make sure I arrived on time for our meeting, I left the house. While my husband, who usually sleeps until noon since his retirement, was still asleep, I left a handwritten note before heading out. Sorry to keep you waiting, you're all early. I planned to arrive 15 minutes early, but my friends were already there. We just got too excited and arrived too early. Today, 2 of my high school friends, who also attended the same college with me, were joining. We've been the best of friends. As our chatter was blooming, it was time for our reservation, so we headed to the restaurant. It was a casual and welcoming place. Since I was always busy with work, I rarely had the opportunity to visit places like this, which made me very happy. I haven't been to a place like this since my youth. You're exaggerating. Let's come here as many times as you want after you retire. But you extended for 5 more years, right? People who can work are different. We don't have to wait until I retire. We're going to have lots of fun from now on. Various dishes were served, and we savored them. We reminisced about our student days and discussed our thoughts at our current age, having a wonderful time. It's been a long time since I laughed this much. I haven't had a restful moment at work or at home for a while. As I thought about this, a hurried sound of door opening and a panicked voice from the restaurant staff caught my attention. Wait, isn't that man Lucy's husband? You're right. He's coming this way. What? No way. Hearing my friend's words and looking towards the commotion, I found my husband with a devilish look on his face heading towards us. I instinctively looked away, but the next moment all the dishes on the table were knocked to the floor by my husband. The sound of the plate shattering echoed throughout. In the middle of the uproar in the restaurant, the first to speak was my husband. Why did you go out without preparing my meal? What? What are you talking about? You always manage to eat without me making anything. I'm talking about today, and you're wasting money in a place like this. It's my money I earned, and I'm free to spend it how I want, right? Shut up. You don't talk back to me. You'll lose your income when you retire at 70. I'm telling you to save it. My husband's absurd argument made me raise my voice, but realizing this was a public place, I recoiled and made myself small. Not only my friends, but also the other customers and staff were taken aback and were staring at us. Feeling embarrassed and angry, my face turned red. Then one of my friends stood up. Why are you here all of a sudden? We're just friends gathering for a meal. As a husband, I think you should understand that much. That's right. Just because you're married doesn't mean you have the right to control her, they said, glaring at him. Relieved at my friend's support, I looked at my husband. It was evident that he was trembling with rage. Apparently, he was so angry that he did something unthinkable. He took water from the next table and splashed it at my two friends. Ah! Hey, what are you doing? I stood rigid, aghast at what had just happened, merely watching my drenched friends. It's because of people like you who take her out that her housework gets neglected. With that, my husband yanked my hand and dragged me out of the restaurant. All the while, the restaurant was buzzing with commotion, and I could not bring myself to raise my voice. Days later, I called my friends to apologize. I'm truly sorry.
It's not your fault, Lucy. It's clearly your husband who's in the wrong. To be frank, you should leave him. You'll be constrained in everything you do from now on.
My friend said this with an awkward look, but I also thought that I needed to rethink my relationship with my husband after this incident. Joshua has changed, but I can't bring myself to cut ties. Even though I knew in my head that I needed to leave, I was already emotionally attached to my husband after just a few years together. But, as if to mock my feelings, my husband took an outrageous action again. Given the recent incident, I figured I would be able to go out without telling my husband anymore, so I decided to go shopping with him. Do you have any plans today, dear? I'm retired now, so of course I don't. Are you making fun of me? No, that's not it. I was thinking of going shopping. Would you like to come with me? I guess I have no choice. We headed to the shopping center, where we could find anything we needed. Even while driving, my husband looked sullen and seemed to be in a bad mood. We're here. We're here. What did you come to buy? I came to buy my mom's pajamas and such today. The ones she's wearing now have gotten old. When I answered this way, my husband let out a heavy sigh. Why do I have to shop for your mother? He ended up not even getting out of the car. I had no choice but to shop alone. When I quickly returned to the parking lot, not only the car, but also my husband was gone. Thinking it was strange, I called my husband multiple times, but he didn't answer. Could it be he went home first? I searched around for a while, but I couldn't find my husband in the end. Since I didn't have money for a taxi fare, I ended up walking home. It was a 1-hour walk carrying bags. Being nearly 60 years old and lacking in regular exercise, I had to take several breaks and eventually arrived home in 2 hours. When I got home, my husband was laughing heartily while watching TV and drinking beer. When he noticed my return, he looked at the exhausted me and laughed again as if mocking me. How many hours did it take you to get back? That's because you left me there. Why would you go home all of a sudden? Your shopping isn't my concern. Now hurry up and make dinner. He said, then he leaned back on the sofa and turned his attention back to the television. I'm not done talking. Even when I shouted at him, he ignored me. Being repeatedly subjected to my husband's selfishness, my frustration reached a boiling point. At this time, when I was feeling mentally drained, I received a call from my mother's home care nurse informing that my mother had fractured a bone. My 87-year-old mother had been living alone since my father passed away, and usually as a helper to assist with daily life. Apparently, she had accidentally tripped over the entrance's step, and I was told she would need constant care for a while. You see, my mom fractured a bone and needs care. I'm going. Hey, wait, what about my dinner? And besides, she should be fine on her own with just a fracture. What are you saying? My mother is elderly. If we leave her as she is, she won't be able to walk or eat on her own. As I argued back against my husband's selfish remarks and prepared to go to my parents' home, he said something unbelievable. If we leave her alone, won't someone from the other side come to pick her up? Then we wouldn't have to deal with her anymore, right? He smirked as if enjoying my reaction. You're despicable. Ignoring him, I stormed out of the house. I could hear unbearable insults being thrown at me from behind, but they no longer reached my ears. I had been holding back, but after hearing him talk about my mother in such a way, something inside me exploded. At that moment, I decided to take revenge. For a week, I stayed at my parents' home to take care of my mother. As expected, my phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from my husband, but I ignored them all. While concentrating on my mother's care, I couldn't help worrying about my future life. I could continue working until I'm 70, so I can work for another 5 years. However, I was prepared to quit my job for my mother. Knowing that just thinking won't help, I decided to return home once to discuss the future with my husband. When I arrived home, the front door was unlocked and my husband was sitting on the living room sofa with his arms crossed. I'm back! I hesitantly called out to him, and the words that came out of his mouth were unbelievable. I threw away all your belongings because you went to your parents' house without permission. What? In a panic, I looked around the house. Indeed, all my personal belongings had vanished. My clothes from my wardrobe, my cosmetics from the bathroom, everything. The album with precious memories of my mother seemed to have been discarded as well. Why would you do such a thing? Where did you throw them? Give them back. What's with the attitude? If you can't listen to me, then get out. What? Whether it was because I was being defiant, he was irritated and hit the table. Seriously, you incorrigible man. I wonder if my mom had seen through your character. Having lost the energy to even get angry, I sighed heavily and looked down at my seated husband. Our marriage certificate. Huh? What are you talking about? Our marriage certificate. My husband, who hadn't expected to hear that, widened his eyes in surprise. We didn't submit it, right? Us? In fact, my mother was strongly opposed to my marriage to him. Looking back, I wondered if she had sensed something about my husband back then. She adamantly refused to permit our marriage. There were also circumstances at work where it were more convenient for me to keep my maiden name, so we had discussed waiting until each of us retired to submit the marriage certificate. We were in common law marriage. So we're not legally husband and wife? That's right. We even had separate insurance cards. And I had been left to handle all official documents. You must have completely forgotten about the existence of the marriage certificate, so you threw it away, didn't you? I coldly stated this, staring at my husband, still seated on the sofa. Since we haven't submitted the marriage certificate, we're not legally a couple. Plus, I built this house before we got married. Wait, you can't be serious. Indeed, I am serious. The one who needs to leave is you, Joshua. I can't live with someone as horrible as you. Wait, hold on. You've changed since you retired, Joshua. If it was just the nasty things you did to me, I could still forgive you, but it's unacceptable for you to badmouth my friends and mother. Wait, I was just jealous. You can still work while I can't. And you even said that you can work for another 5 years with re-employment. I was planning to work in the same department even after my retirement. But the company told me to move to an insignificant department. I couldn't swallow my pride. When I refused, they simply cut me off at the age of 65. As he said this, he hung his head and glanced sideways at me. He probably expected me to gently encourage him, as I used to do in such times. But none of that matters now. I went to the kitchen to get a garbage bag, and just as my husband had done with my belongings, I began to throw his things into it, one after another. I delivered the final blow to my husband, who was stunned by the scene. You seem to be relying on my income and savings after your retirement, but since we're not a couple, I want you to leave this house. You'll have to get by on your own from now on. Wait, I apologize for everything, so please don't kick me out. It's too late for regrets now. Goodbye. And so I managed to take my revenge on my husband and became free. After that, my husband lost his place to live, and as he was wasteful with money, his savings are almost zero, so he's living a very poor life. Of course, he can't make a living on pension alone, and given his high pride, even finding re-employment seems hopeless. He's said to be eking out a living with daily part-time jobs. He's been disliked by his relatives for a long time, so there's no one to help him. This is truly reaping what you sow. On the other hand, I started living with my mother. I was worried about my mother's health, and since her home was getting old, I invited her to live in this house. I managed to balance my work and caregiving with the help of understanding from my workplace and using caregiving services. It's very busy, but I'm living fulfilling and enjoyable days every day.
My name is Cindy. For 28 years since I was born, I believe I have lived by the motto that people are inherently good. I thought that most people could understand each other if they talked openly, and I actually interacted with people in that way. But for the first time in my life, I met someone I felt was completely incomprehensible, and that person is going to be Madison's wife. I never dreamed of it. That day, my father, mother, and I were all restless from the morning knowing that Madison was bringing his fiancée. My brother Madison is 31 years old. We all noticed he had a girlfriend he had been dating for about a year. He became strangely fashionable, was often excitedly looking at his mobile phone, and even went on weekend trips 3 weeks ago. My parents and I were having a little family meeting wondering if Madison was going to get married soon, when Madison said,
I invited her to our house this Sunday. I want to marry her.
Her name is Rosa, 2 years younger than me, 26 years old. Younger, but becoming my sister-in-law feels a bit strange. Well, if I divorced your father and remarried someone younger, he would still be your father.
Then I'll also marry someone younger than Cindy, a younger mom.
My father laughed along with us, including my parents, Madison and me, plus our cats Leo and Milo. We're a close-knit family of 4. That day, Mom was excited to have lunch together and had been bustling around since morning. Course meals are the best, don't you think? I wonder if their family prefers lighter flavors. Our dad likes his food a bit richer, so I usually cook that way. I hope it suits their taste, she said, preparing the meal. The main dish was steak, and I helped with the avocado salad and seafood pasta. Rosa's first impression was that she was petite and delicate, not flashy but beautiful. and she seemed reserved and gentle. That was my initial thought. Later on, I would learn that first impressions can be deceiving. We introduced ourselves over the meal, and the atmosphere was pleasant as we ate. Rosa, true to her appearance, ate little, while Madison enthusiastically ate her share. "I'm sorry, I can't eat very much," Rosa said apologetically. Both my father and mother reassured her, saying it was no problem at all. As for Madison, he annoyingly compared me to Rosa, saying it's much better than being a big eater like Cindy. I have people who tell me that eating with me is fun and everything tastes delicious. Food lovers unite! For dessert, we were served Rosa's gift cake along with my mother's specialty. Madison's tall because he takes after his father. He's tall and handsome. My dad is just an old man, Rosa said, making my father blush a little. But around this time, I started to feel something was off. Rosa rarely spoke to my mother and me. In other words, she was only talking to the men. Even when my mother or I tried to engage her, she would only respond briefly and the conversation wouldn't flow. No, she didn't even seem to want it to flow. "Excuse me, may I use the restroom?" Rosa asked, standing up. Of course. Cindy, show her the way." Our house isn't that big, but this was to make sure she didn't peek into the rooms where we usually stash clutter and baggage. "Cindy, which university did you graduate from?" Rosa asked as soon as we left the living room. I didn't go to college. I am not very good at studying. Would my sister's education matter to her future sister-in-law? Couldn't she just ask Madison later? "Oh, is that so? I think Madison said his sister doesn't work either." "Hey, Madison, are you describing me as an unemployed shut-in? I'm actually a fairly popular stuffed animal artist. I create stuffed animals that look like deceased pets from photos or imaginary creatures like mythical beasts. I make stuffed animals at home. Rosa, do you have a favorite animal? If you request it, I will make it and gift it to you." I thought I was offering the best service possible. "I don't like stuffed animals or dolls or animals in general, so I'll pass." But she smiled and replied. I was left a bit stunned in front of the bathroom, and Rosa opened the door and went in. What was that all about? I felt like my entire life had been negated. I returned to the living room and complained to Madison. "Does Rosa hate animals? She even hates stuffed animals. I tried to give her one as a gift, but she refused." That's true. I once gave her a stuffed animal, and even though I went to the trouble of giving it to her, she cried and said, I'm sorry, I can't handle it." I ended up having to buy her a necklace. Madison said this with a smug look. What? Hold on a second. Was she aiming for jewelry from the start? Is my heart twisted for thinking that way? Animals? Well, it's not that she hates them. It's an allergy. Like to dogs and cats? We have Leo and Milo at home, so living here would be difficult. I was planning to talk about that today. Both my father and mother were surprised at Madison's words, but they should understand it, saying, if that's the case, it can't be helped. Leo and Milo are family. We can't kick them out. But inside, I doubted the allergy. Sure, some people have animal allergies, but didn't she just say that because she didn't want to live with her mother-in-law and sister-in-law? I can only think that she really did reject my gift. Rosa came back from the bathroom and my father asked about how they met. She was a receptionist at a client's office, Madison began, and according to him, Rosa was known among his colleagues as the cute receptionist, the petite one. By the way, Madison works for a fairly large trading company. To put it simply, he's an elite. One time, the non-petite receptionist asked if they wanted to go on a group date with their general affairs department. I'm not really good at group dates, Rosa said, looking a bit troubled. But I'm glad I participated because I got to know Madison better, she said, looking at Madison with innocent eyes. Oh, poor Madison, completely in love, utterly captivated. My father was also completely charmed, saying things like, take care of my son, and, Cindy, why don't you learn from Rosa and act more feminine? It's none of their business. After Rosa left, my mother said while cleaning up, I wonder if she didn't like the food. She didn't say anything and she didn't eat much. I was also concerned about that. While helping clean up, I probed my mother a bit. She mostly talked to my brother and father and hardly spoke to us, right? I didn't notice because she was smiling so nicely. At this point, my mother didn't seem to have a bad impression of Rosa. Oh, there are girls like that, aren't there? They're popular with men, but they don't have female friends. If they do, they just use them to show off. My boyfriend Adolph was the one who said this clearly after hearing my story. You think so too? What should I do? I don't like it. I can't believe someone like her will be Madison's wife and my sister-in-law. I was very depressed. Adolph is 34 years old and runs several cafes and novelty shops. His stores are known for their unique style and quirkiness, and he's become a minor celebrity on social media. We became friends after he asked to display the stuffed animals I created in his store. His requests were for mythical creatures like the three-headed dog Auroras, dragons, and other strange animals he designed. His shop helped me gain popularity and my reputation increased significantly in some circles.
I want to meet them too. Bring your brother and his girlfriend here next time.
Adolf suggested. The guy was clearly intrigued.
Oh, how about using my shop for the after party?
It was spacious enough, and even though it was a cafe, it had a rich menu of alcohol and food. It might be perfect. At least it was a perfect excuse to introduce them. So with a plan packed with a venue inspection for the after-party consultation and introducing my boyfriend, I called Madison and Rosa. Rosa's behavior at that time was something to see. She was amazed by the Instagram-worthy interior and became very interested when she learned it was a hot topic on social media. I am surprised Cindy has such a boyfriend, she said to Adolph. Not me. When she found out he managed several other shops, she seemed to glare at me enviously for a moment. I think I was a little proud. Madison, completely smitten, didn't notice his female battle at all.
He was surprised, saying, Cindy, when did you get such a boyfriend while you were shut in?
And asked Adolph to take care of his sister. I'm not shut in, okay? In the end, the proposal to use the venue for the after-party was rejected due to its distance from the wedding venue and the concern that the quirky interior might put off anyone other than young people. It was just an excuse, so it didn't matter, but I thought Rosa might have wanted to avoid drawing attention to me by using my boyfriend's shop.
Yeah, it's better not to touch that girl. If you say anything bad about her to your brother, you will become the villain.
Adolph warned me. I couldn't decide if he was lying or telling the truth. Would Madison trust her more than his sister, with whom he had lived for 28 years? The two families met for the first time. Rosa wanted to book a rather stylish French restaurant. Honestly and embarrassingly, neither my mother nor I had much experience with French cuisine. Rosa openly looked down on my mother and me as we clumsily used our knives and forks, following makeshift manners. And the men didn't notice at all. Same old story. I quickly realized that Sean adored his daughter, and Natalie, who resembled Rosa in appearance, was a genuinely humble and gentle person, subtly caring for my mother and me. What surprised me was that Rosa mostly ignored her own mother. I thought living with a husband who doted on his daughter and a daughter who looked down on her must be quite tough. My mother also said, I felt sorry for their mother. Mom, I have a feeling this marriage isn't a good idea. When I finally said this to my mother, she replied, yes, I think there might be something wrong with Rosa. The problem was that the men were completely oblivious to this issue. Hey, Madison, does Rosa have any female friends?
What's with a sudden question? She does. You know, the receptionist, who's not the petite one, she said they're friends.
The way he said it probably meant that she was at least less attractive than Rosa. Rosa, you know, she only talks to men like you, Dad, and adults. She ignores Mom and me.
What? What are you talking about? That's not like Rosa. Don't start harassing your future sister-in-law now.
No matter what I tell Madison, he thinks I'm speaking out of jealousy or spite towards my future sister-in-law. The wedding preparations seemed to be progressing smoothly, and Rosa had already quit her job to focus on getting ready for the marriage.
I feel bad for leaving everything to Rosa,
Madison said, but I thought it was just that Rosa wanted to take charge of the wedding her way. In the end, I had no choice but to watch the wedding day approach. Then that phone call came, the day before the wedding. Rosa called my mobile phone directly. I don't remember giving her my number, but Madison must have told her. Cindy, regarding tomorrow's wedding and reception, could you not attend since you're an unemployed embarrassment to the family? We don't want poor people there. There won't be a seat for you even if you come. I was frozen by the sudden and cruel content of her words. What on earth was she talking about? I had been preparing to attend, and before I could find words to respond, more in shock than anger, the call was cut off. Mom, Rosa just called and told me not to come to the wedding. What? What's going on? I called Madison. It's unthinkable that a sister wouldn't be allowed to attend the wedding or reception. Surely Madison would think so too. Madison was at work and hard to reach. When I finally got hold of him, he said, sorry, but you hate Rosa, don't you? I was a little tongue-tied because I couldn't deny that I disliked her. Rosa said she feels hated by her sister and she doesn't want you to come if you don't want to. She says it's painful to be superficially congratulated by someone who dislikes her. And she's crying. Really? She's crying? You believe that, Madison? I was dumbfounded. Was it useless to say anything to this Madison? My mother and I looked at each other and sighed. At that moment, the doorbell rang, announcing a visitor. To our surprise, it was Natalie standing at the door. I heard my daughter on the phone. I thought it was outrageous. I'm sorry to bother you so suddenly. We invited Natalie, who was bowing at the entrance into the house, and listened to her. That child, I know it's strange for a mother to say this, but she's a terrifying child. She looks down on me. My husband does whatever she says, and he won't listen to anything I say. It's been like this for a long time, a very long time. Natalie spoke with a firm voice. Though she looked pained, I first noticed it when she was 3 years old. She was just touching my makeup, so I scolded her. It would be terrible if she accidentally put it in her mouth. But she didn't cry, she just glared at me with defiant eyes. When my husband came home, she ran to the entrance, clung to his leg, and burst into tears. When he asked what happened, I told him I scolded Rosa for messing with the makeup. He picked her up, saying she's only 3, but she's just a girl, and nuzzled her cheek. That's when Rosa looked at me and smiled triumphantly. I was chilled to the bone hearing this story. I couldn't believe that from as young as 3, she had been manipulating men using her appearance that made them want to protect her. According to Natalie, Rosa was not only good with men but also skilled at winning over powerful women. Ever since then, Rosa had played the part of a sweet daughter in front of her father and acted like a spoiled problem child in front of her mother. Even when Natalie complained to her husband about Rosa's behavior, he wouldn't listen, saying terrible things like, "Isn't the problem with you as a mother? Why do you always talk like you're paranoid? Even mothers and daughters can be jealous of each other. I don't think you were that kind of woman. Aren't you ashamed to be jealous of your daughter?" How awful! I was so stunned, I couldn't speak. It must have been hard. I'm sorry. I couldn't have endured it if I were you. My mother said kindly, and Natalie burst into tears. I have decided if Rosa says my daughter can't attend, then I won't either. I can't support this marriage. What? Mom? If the groom's mother suddenly cancels on the day, wouldn't that be a big problem? As I was surprised, I agree. I won't attend either. I don't want to involve other families and create more unhappy people. I have made up my mind too. Natalie also declared, crying. I thought this was a big deal, but also a chance to stop Madison's marriage. That woman had gone too far. The real mother's accusation had an impact like no other. Rosa is the type of person you must never get close to. Having her as a family member would be nothing short of a nightmare. I wanted to stop it for Madison's sake. We booked a hotel near the wedding venue and started a strategy meeting with the 3 of us. We left a note for Dad saying, "We have various preparations the day before, so we'll stay at the hotel and go directly to the venue. Everything is ready for Dad tomorrow, and men, don't doubt when women say they have various preparations, especially Dad," my mother said. After discussion, we decided to inform only Madison in advance. The call from Rosa to me. Natalia's testimony to back it up, the fact that the 3 of us opposed this marriage. So, we won't be attending the wedding tomorrow. Don't call the police. It's not like we were involved in an accident or crime. Think about it yourself. My mother said and quickly hung up without listening to Madison's side. Then, all 3 of us blocked incoming calls from Madison and our fathers. The 3 of us were about to do something drastic, but we were somehow excited about it, especially Natalie. She looked truly happy. On the day of the wedding reception, our father spotted us at the venue and rushed over. "What were you doing? What were you thinking? It was a big deal." Of course it was. It would be a major problem if both mother and the bride's sister didn't show up at the wedding. Apparently, Madison had made an awkward excuse that the car carrying the 3 of us had broken down on the way to the venue. The wedding reception seats were almost filled and the bride and groom were about to appear in about 10 minutes. "Dad, did you notice I don't have a seat, do I?" My name was not in the family seats. Yesterday, Rosa called me and told me that an unemployed poor person like me would be a family disgrace, so I shouldn't come. But it seems like she never intended to prepare a seat for me in the first place. As my father stood there in shock, Sean raised his voice. That's ridiculous. She would never say such a thing. No, it's true. I heard her make that call. Natalie testified. A venue staff member came over and asked if there was any trouble. I'm the groom's sister, and it seems I don't have a seat. While saying that's ridiculous, I asked the staff member, could you please just prepare a chair for now? The food is fine. They squeezed in a chair for me in the family seats. The bride and groom entered. Rosa was probably the most surprised to see the two mothers and me who hadn't appeared at the wedding in the family seats. She looked like she wanted to say something, but of course, she couldn't. Once the bride and groom were seated, the three of us stood up and borrowed a microphone from the host. Thank you all for coming to the wedding reception of both families. I am the groom's mother. I am the bride's mother. I apologize for addressing you in this manner. Lastly, I spoke. I am the groom's sister. We oppose this marriage. Venue, silent for a moment, erupted into a commotion. I was told by the bride Rosa herself over the phone yesterday. Don't come. You unemployed poor person, you're a family disgrace. I am not unemployed and I am not poor, but my brother, the groom, sides with Rosa and doesn't believe me. Natalia continued after my accusations. It's embarrassing to say, but my daughter Rosa has been very good at ingratiating herself with men since she was young and always looked down on and ridiculed women. Her father is completely under her control. No matter how much I complained, I was the one blamed. Finally, my mother said, I don't want such a woman to be my son's wife. How cruel, Mom! How could you say that? Cindy and my mother-in-law, just because you hate me, to do something so terrible. Ross, seated at the bride and groom's table, began to cry. The men were easily deceived by these tears. The atmosphere in the venue, which had been in an uproar, seemed to be turning against us. At that moment, some people broke through that atmosphere. Three women sitting in Rosa's friend seats stood up and began to testify about Rosa's actions and words so far. One of them took the microphone and said, "We understand very well what has just been said." She continued, explaining that Rosa's attitude is completely different in front of men and women. She quickly senses the power dynamics of a situation and ingratiates herself accordingly. Men are deceived by her appearance and gestures, feeling the need to protect her, while women who criticize her become the villains. If she finds a weakness in someone, she skillfully exploits it to make them do her bidding. They must have been holding back a lot against Rosa's past actions, and the accusations continued one after another. Finally, one of them said, I'm truly glad to have this opportunity to speak up. Even today, none of her friends wanted to come. Men really don't understand anything. People are not just what appears on the surface. Rosa and Sean were stunned. The venue erupted into a commotion. In the midst of this, Madison spoke with a grave expression.
Thank you all for taking the trouble to come here for us today. I'm sorry to have to report this unfortunate news, but we have decided to call off this marriage. In retrospect, my sister had realized the truth. It was my fault for being too excited and not listening to her properly. A woman who wouldn't even prepare a seat for my sister was clearly unacceptable as a wife.
Naturally, the aftermath was a mess. Cards were returned to everyone and we discussed the cancellation fee for the wedding reception with the venue. All the while, Rosa was weakly crying, saying, Everyone is trying to put me down. This is such terrible treatment. Only Sean must have truly believed in his daughter's tears. Since then, Madison has been quite distrustful of women. It's understandable. Well, it's good we postponed the registration, and since we announced it at the reception venue, we didn't have to explain it to everyone individually. I tried to follow up, though it wasn't much consolation. Once away from Rosa, Madison seemed to have many realizations.
If I ever date a woman again, I'll make sure to listen to Mom and Cindy,
he said with a wry smile. In the end, the cancellation fee was split in half. Rosa and Sean were not satisfied, but Natalia forcefully settled it that way. Afterwards, Natalia handed in divorce papers and left the house. She is now free and has become noticeably brighter. Since uniting with my mother over this issue, they have become good friends and often come to visit. Rosa, having been exposed to that extent, has been abandoned by almost everyone she knew and is reportedly shut in, unable to find work again. The father who doted on his daughter and the daughter who can't do any housework are said to be living together in a chaotic house. Perhaps he only realized the value of a wife and mother after losing them, or maybe the resentment of having the wedding ruined is stronger.
Wow, that was tough. By the way, Cindy, Have you ever thought about having your own workshop?
Adolf brought this up once things had settled down.
Your stuffed animals are getting good reviews. I want you to increase production a bit. I'll invest. So why don't you hire some people and start a workshop?
I appreciated the offer, but I said I couldn't rely on him that much.
He replied, "It's natural to spend money on the woman who's going to be my wife."
And just like that, he proposed. If we don't have to have a wedding ceremony or a wedding reception. After what we went through, the wedding reception has become a bit of a trauma for me. Adolf said with a laugh,
"Then let's have a party at my place."
I feel somewhat sorry for Madison, but I am a lucky person.